Hello everyone, I am your host CasuallyChess, and today I will look over a game where a rook gave Kasparov the equivalent of 4 million US dollars in today's currency. This is the first video in my series where I will be looking at prominent chess moments of the past. In 1990, Garry Kasparov and Anatoly Karpov played a grueling 24-game series for the title of the world champion. The first 12 games were set in New York and the rest were played in Lyon. Heading into the final game of the series, the score is a tight 12-11 in favor of Kasparov. You might think that a win by Karpov would send the game into tiebreakers, but that was not the case in 1990. If Karpov won the game, then Kasparov would still be champion. However, Karpov would receive half of the prize pool instead of about a quarter if he lost. This was the case back then, since Kasparov would only play on his terms, and this was his choice. I think he was able to do this because of star power and advertising. The sponsors he got made him have a lot of negotiating power with the organizers. So what are my thoughts on this? Well, on one hand, the challenger has to prove himself to be much better than the world champion to deserve the title. On the other hand, draws occur more frequently now, and it is not viable to do this. It is unfair for the challenger as they have to take more risks in the beginning of the match in order to try to go for a win. In this final game, Kasparov played the move Rook captures on a4, and it was in this position that Karpov agreed to draw, with Kasparov taking home 1.85 million US dollars with the Rook, which is equivalent to 4 million US dollars today. Let's take a look at this amazing game and see why the Rook move was the final one. So here on the white pieces, we have Garry Kasparov, and with black, we have Anatoly Karpov. Kasparov opened with the move knight f3, which is very surprising for Karpov since during this 24-game match, Kasparov frequently played e4, which offered him very tactical and open positions, which is in Kasparov's style. But with knight f3, Kasparov asked Karpov the question, which setup does he want to employ? Because knight f3 is a very flexible move that can transpose into many positions, as d4, c4, and b3, following this move. And with knight f3, there are many options for Karpov. So one option here would be to play d5, with the idea of trying to force Kasparov back into a d4 position, if Kasparov decides to play d4 here. Another move Karpov could try to play is to play c5. And if Kasparov wants, Kasparov can play the move e4 here. The idea here being that after e4, the position transposes back to a Sicilian. And with many of the previous games being played with e4, e5, playing the Sicilian and having a lot of tactical chances would be in Kasparov's favor. So I think Karpov would want to avoid that. So without overcommitting to d5 or c5 setups, Karpov played the equally flexible move of knight f6, which counteracts Kasparov, which setup he wants to do, because now Kasparov has many options as well. He could go for d4, which is going back to a d4, d5 setup. Or Kasparov could go for b3, with the idea of playing e3, bishop b2, and bishop e2, which a lot of modern players like to play. But instead of those setups, Kasparov played the move c4. And it is a very nice setup by playing c4 here, because it avoids a lot of active lines of black with c4, e5 lines. So the idea of playing knight f3 first and then c4 is because after c4 and e5, Karpov can have these really tactical positions and also have a chance to develop the kingside pawns, which later can turn into very risky positions for white. And Kasparov only needs a draw to win the full prize money and also the title. So he would want to avoid c4, e5 type of positions. So after knight f3, knight f6, and c4, black cannot play e5 now because after e5, Kasparov can just take the e5 pawn. So here, Karpov played the move e6, trying to develop this dark squared bishop. Kasparov played the move knight c3, which still goes into the spirit of surprising Karpov, because after knight c3, Karpov is forced to play the move bishop b4. Instead of the typical setup, black like to use bishop e7. Because after bishop e7, if Kasparov plays d4 and Karpov plays d5, this now transposes back to the very popular Queen's Gambit decline type of positions, where it is still popular today. For example, Grandmaster Hikaru Nakamura used this setup as black to beat Magnus Carlsen recently. But by playing knight c3 first, and bishop e7 with black, white can play this idea of e4, which stops d5 ideas, because after d5, white can play e5, starting to attack black's position right away. And after e5, it is very hard for black to develop properly, and white also has this very strong center as well as this space advantage. So by playing knight c3, this forces Karpov to play the move bishop d4. And instead of going back to a d4 position, he played the move queen c2 with the idea of giving up this knight for a bishop pair advantage. If he didn't play queen c2 and black captures on c3, white is forced to take with the d pawn or the b pawn, and this will cause white to have these doubled pawns. But here, after queen c2, if black takes the knight, then white could just take with the queen. And here, white has this really nice bishop pair, and it has no pawn doubling disadvantages. After queen c2, black played castling to develop. Kasparov played a3, asking Karpov the question, does he want to exchange the bishop for the knight and give up his bishop pair, or play bishop e7? But after bishop e7, white is up tempo, and also white can use the a3 square to support any e4 or d4 ideas in the future. So black doesn't want to play too passive in the opening, and instead chose to take on c3. And Kasparov took back with the queen. After this exchange, white has this really nice bishop pair, and this allows white to have this long-term advantage. And black, even though with faster development, he doesn't really have any targets to attack white with, and white is slightly better in this position. So here, Karpov played the move e6 with the idea of developing the bishop and capturing this a8 to h1 diagonal. Kasparov here responded with b4 with the idea of setting up this battery with bishop and the queen, attacking the g7 pawn and taking control of this a1 to h8 diagonal. After b4, Karpov responded with the move d6, trying to open up a square for the knight to go to d7 instead of going to c6 and blocking the bishop on b7 later. So Kasparov here responded with bishop b2, which goes in with the spirit of this position to put pressure on the g7 pawn. I think this is also why Kasparov's setup with c4 is very smart here. Let's say if white plays something like d4 here, transposing back to d4 type of setups, black has this idea of playing d5, which fixes the white pawn and blocks this battery, which white cannot take advantage of. But instead of this, Kasparov played the move bishop b2, taking advantage of this long diagonal. Karpov here responded with bishop e7, developing. Kasparov here played the move g3 with the idea of castling on the king side. Because if Kasparov castles on the queen side here, the c4, b4, and a3 pawns are too forward, and this gives black chances to weaken white's queen side and putting up a lot of pressure on white's king. Here, this is why Kasparov wants to castle on the king side instead. Now, Karpov played the move c5, trying to challenge the dominance of white's b4 and c4 pawns, and stopping some queenside advanced ideas with the white pieces. So here Kasparov continued development by playing the move bishop d2. Karpov played knight d7, and here Kasparov castled. And in this position, both players finished the opening development and needs to come up with a plan to go into the middle game. Here it is very easy for white to play, because white has many attacking ideas. For example, the bishop and the queen battery can easily put up pressure on the g7 pawn. White, if feeling very ambitious, can play the move g4 and g5 with the idea to open up this long diagonal and threaten checkmate. Furthermore, white also has these really nice pawns on the queen side, which supports a future queenside advancement. So these are two ideas Kasparov can have for the middle game. But for black, it is not very easy to play as there are no clear targets. And here, the best option for Karpov is to stop white's plan before it gets too late. So here Karpov played the really nice move of rook c8, which puts pressure on the queen, pinning the queen, and puts pressure on the c4 pawn. Black's idea in the future might be to play d5 or b5, trying to open up this diagonal and trying to capture the c4 pawn. And here Kasparov responded with d3, which protects the c4 pawn, alleviating the pressure on the white queen. Here, Karpov played the move rook e8, with the idea of relocating the queen to e7 and then to f8, protecting the g7 pawn. And then, after the g7 pawn is protected, black is able to free up the knight without being worried about checkmated. So here, white responded with e4. Really nice move that potentially supports the pawn advancements on the king side, and also stops black from playing the move d5. The idea with d5 here is to open up the center and counterplay by opening up the e file and the c file for the black's rooks. Here, Karpov continued with the move a6, continuing the idea to threaten white's c4 pawn. But I think another option black could have tried is just to play d5 here, because after d5, e takes d5, e takes d5, c takes d5, bishop takes d5. Black has these really nice open files for these rooks, and also the d3 pawn is weak, and black's queen can potentially target this d3 pawn. So here, it is in white's best interest to play the move rook fe1, with the idea if black takes on e4, white can take on e4, and if black takes on e4, thinking it is a free pawn, white can just take back, and black cannot take because it will be queen g7 checkmate. This shows the strong battery and how it stops black from opening up white's position. Here, I think the best plan for black will be to play d4, with the idea of developing this really nice pawn chain and stopping white from utilizing this long diagonal. But Karpov didn't go with this plan. Instead, he went for this a6 idea, continuing to put pressure on the c4 pawn. White played the move queen b3, trying to avoid the pin and trying to recapture b5 if possible. Karpov played b5, continuing to put pressure on the c4 pawn. Kasparov here played knight d2, with the idea of protecting the e4 pawn. If black tries to take c4, white can take back with the knight and threaten to take the d6 pawn here. If white didn't play knight d2 and instead play something like h4 here, black could just take the pawn, and if white takes the pawn, black can take the e4 pawn for free. So this is one advantage with knight d2. Another advantage is that white can use the queen and the bishop to control this d5 square along with the two pawns. And the idea here is to never let black play the move d5 with the center breakthrough. So black here played the move rook b8, continuing to put pressure on white's queen. Kasparov played the move rook c1, as kingside attacking ideas now ended for Kasparov, as the battery no longer exists. Here, Kasparov tries to shift the center of attack to the queen side by using the rooks and the bishop and the knight. And the idea of rook c1 here is to move the queen back and use these pieces to try to attack the queen side later on in the game. So Karpov played the move bishop a8 here, putting up more pressure on the white queen. White played the move queen d1, avoiding the pin. Black played the move queen e7, continuing with the earlier idea of relocating the queen to f8 and also connecting the rooks together. White played the move c takes b5, trying to break up black's really nice pawn structure. Black took back with the a pawn. White played knight b3. The idea here is to try to force black to make a choice, whether to take the b4 pawn or just leave the position like this, and giving white the idea of attacking the c5 pawn with the knight and the rook. So here, if black does decide to take on b4, white can take on b4, and the idea here is that white has these really nice open files for both of the rooks, and black's a8 bishop is in an awkward position as the e4 pawn blocks this file for the black bishop, and it is a potential target for white later on in the game. So fearing that position, Karpov did not take on b4 and instead played the move e5. The e5 move here attempts to allow white to take on c5 with the idea of d takes c5, playing rook d8 later on, and putting pressure on the d3 pawn later with the idea of using the c5 pawn and the e5 pawn to control the really nice square of d4. So after e5, Kasparov did not take on c5 and instead played the move f3 to guard the center and to try to play b takes c5 later on by relocating the queen to e2 and then to e3 to help attack the c5 pawn. After f3, white's kingside pawn structure is being broken, and Karpov tries to take advantage of this by playing the move h5, with the idea of playing h4 and opening up white's weakened pawn structure on the king side, with that idea of playing h4 and knight h5 later on. So Kasparov ignores this and goes with his own idea, b takes c5, d takes c5, and a4. A really nice move to try to ask Karpov the question, does he want to take on a4 or does he want to play b4? Both moves weaken the c5 pawn and also allows white, after b takes a4 or b4, control this really nice square on c4. So avoiding all of those ideas, Karpov decides to proceed with his own idea by playing h4, continuing to weaken white's kingside. Here Kasparov did not give Karpov any chances, and he played the move g4, which closes the kingside and not allowing any breakthroughs. Karpov here played the move c4, not attempting to have a really long-term weakness on c5 and trying to open up the queen side and utilize this rook by attacking the knight and also the bishop. Here, Kasparov took, black took on a4, and here, Kasparov played the move bishop a3, trying to escape from this pin and also target a4 later on. Karpov here played queen d8. Kasparov played knight c5 with the idea of attacking the a4 pawn with the knight and the queen. And here, I think Karpov made a really deep calculation error by playing the move bishop c6. Why is this an error? Well, after bishop c6, white can play the move knight a4, and white is up a pawn without any clear compensation from the black pieces. Maybe Karpov thought after bishop a4, queen a4, black has this idea queen b6, and after king h1, black could play something like h3. After bishop h3, black can infiltrate the king side by playing queen f2. But instead of giving black all these chances, Kasparov can just play c5, and all of black's attacks are neutralized. So what Karpov should have done here, instead of playing bishop c6, is to play the move knight takes c5, with the idea after bishop c5, then play bishop c6 to guard the a4 pawn. And the future idea is to play rook b2, supporting both the a4 pass pawn and also putting pressure on white's second rank and pushing h3 later on. So here, white played the after knight c5, bishop c6, knight a4. Karpov developed this new idea to relocate the knight to the really nice f4 square by playing the move knight h7, with the idea of playing knight g5, knight e6, and knight f4, and then playing h3, attacking white's king side. So the flaw with this idea is that it's too slow, and white has this really nice, quick idea to trade off all the pieces before black can formulate a strong attack by playing the move knight c5. Black continued with his plan with knight g5. Kasparov took on d7. Black took back with the bishop. And here, Kasparov played this really nice move of rook c3. The idea being attempting to play rook d3, hitting the queen, and also allowing the bishop to retreat back to c1, guarding the f4 square in case black relocates its knight. So in response to this, Karpov attempts to avoid the pin by playing queen a5. Kasparov followed with the move rook d3. Karpov played bishop a4, attacking the queen. Kasparov played queen e1 with the idea of trying to trade the queens off and also attacking the h4 pawn. Here, being down a pawn, Karpov does not want to trade off the queens and instead played the move queen a6, trying to put pressure on white's c4 pawn. Here, Kasparov played this really nice move of bishop c1, not guarding the pawn immediately, but forcing black to make a decision, to retreat the knight, but having this really nice pin, pinning the bishop and the queen. So black played knight e6 here. White continued the pressure by playing rook a3. Black played knight c5, trying to hold on to the position. And Kasparov here continued the pressure with bishop e3. So here it seemed like all is over for Karpov. But Karpov came up with this last trick attempting to salvage the game by playing queen d6, with the idea if Kasparov played the move bishop c5, Karpov can play queen c5 with check, and then after king h1, black can just retreat the bishop back. And here, even though white is up a pawn, white's kingside pawn structure is very weak, and black later on can reorganize and use the rooks to come back and hunt white's king. So not giving Karpov any chances of a counterattack, Kasparov here just played the really simple $1.85 million move, rook takes a4. And it was in this position that both players agreed to a draw, as after knight a4, rook a4, white is up a lot in material. White has these bishop pair for Black's rook, and also white is up a pawn. And Karpov, seeing there are no ways to win this position, agreed to a draw. And after this, Kasparov is able to retain the title and also win the full prize money amount. So thank you all for following me all the way till the end of this video. If you like the content, please like and subscribe and comment down on what are your thoughts on the championship format of 1990. What do you think about the tiebreakers not going into tiebreakers, but instead the World Championship is decided after a draw result is reached? In current World Championship matches, after a draw result, tiebreakers will happen. So thank you all to my Casually Chess stars, and until next time, bye bye.